Ready to go. Yay! We are live. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's episode on the In Her Financial Shoes podcast. We are currently live streaming across a couple of different platforms. So if you're watching live, do let us know, give us a hey in the comments. And if you've got any questions today for my guests, then please feel free just to pop them into the comments box and I will read those questions out live on today's episode. And I'm really excited. For those of you that are Apprentice fans, BBC Apprentice will know straight away who my guest is just by looking at her on the screen if you're watching this live. And I'm super excited because I'm a huge Apprentice fan. It's probably actually the only thing on the BBC channels that I now watch. Like I don't watch the news. I don't watch EastEnders anymore, which is what I used to watch on the BBC channels like years ago before I started my business. And then I decided that all had to kind of go when I launched my business. But The Apprentice is the one thing that I do continue to watch. And obviously we haven't seen it come on the screen this year. But I'm really excited to bring the 2018 winner of The Apprentice, the wonderful Sian Gabadon. So welcome, Sian, to today's podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to chatting.
Oh, me too. We were just having a bit of a chat offline, actually, before we came online. And the journey, I really want to kind of dip into your journey, Sian, about how you've gone from, a business owner, a fashion designer, and actually pivoting quite substantially in your business this year through COVID, with going from designing swimwear and your beautiful designs into loungewear. And I'd really like to talk through your kind of experience and your journey, because I think there's a lot of people in my community who have been through significant changes during COVID, but also I want to hear all the juicy stuff about The Apprentice too. So, so we're here for the next sort of 30 minutes or so, just to kind of to chat about your experiences. So first of all, Sian, for anyone who hasn't come across your work and the work that you did through The Apprentice, what was your experience like when you take us right back to what made you make that decision to make an application for an opportunity to be Lord Sugar's business partner?
Well, I guess so I'd set the business up quite a while before that, very small scale, not like, where you say I'm going to get an investment and this is my business plan. It was very just organic for us. So for me, I just had an Instagram page. I went to uni, I learned how to sew. I did a fashion design degree. So it all just started really organically, and I ended up getting a couple of people to wear the product and so on and so forth. But me and my dad are like massive Apprentice fans just anyway. We always watch the show. And I always used to say to him, one day I'm going to go on this show, and I've got, because you watch it and you're like, why did they pick that name, or why did they do this, why did they do that? And I used to think I could go on this, and I reckon I could do well on it. So this particular year, I think I'd seen an advert or I'd seen something, or a TV advert, and it was saying, apply now. And I thought, well, I've actually got the business now, and I was old enough, so I was a bit like, I'm just going to give it a go. And I literally spent ages on the application form. I thought I'm going to treat it a bit like I'm doing like an essay. And I spent ages writing it all up and sent it all in. And I sent it and I thought, I'm probably not going to hear anything. I made it look as jazzy as I could. I put pictures in and I thought I'm probably not going to hear anything. And I didn't for ages. And I thought, well, that's that, whatever. And then, they asked me to go and audition, and it just kept going. And every audition I was thinking, I'm probably going to be kicked out now. And I just kept going, and I was like, oh my God. And then I got on it, and I was like, what is going on? So it was bizarre. It is now, even to talk about.
So when they put you through the interview process, what was that like?
That was hard as well. Imagine you're going into an audition where you're not really sure what you're going to have to do or how it's going to work. So you can't really prepare because you don't know what, you're going to have to do. It's easy when you go for an interview for a job because you're kind of prepped. And whereas this was a bit like, I don't really know what I'm going to have to do. So yeah, it was really hard. I thought it was quite hard. And like I said, every time I went, I was thinking, I'm probably going to be out now. Like they're going to kick me out now. And when I first went to the first one, there was all like men with briefcases and like older men. And I walked in like a little dress with my heels on, and I just thought, I've not got a chance. And then I ended up getting on it. So I didn't do too bad.
So on that point, actually, how did you feel then? So you talk about like going into a room and lots of men in suits and briefcases. I mean, I come from a finance background, so I totally resonate with that. You know, very, very male dominated profession.
Yeah.
How did you feel then walking into a room with lots of men? Like, was that an obvious?
Do you know what? I worked, so when I finished uni, I started to work in marketing because I couldn't really get a fashion job in Leeds, and I didn't really want to leave Leeds. I couldn't afford to move down to London. And in the corporate job, it was very much like that, male dominated. I was only young and I was quite opinionated. So I used to have like these clashes with people, but so I was kind of used to it a little bit. And I think because especially with like the application and with my business plan, I was quite like, I knew it inside out. So I thought, I felt confident and I wasn't really bothered. If anything, I did go in at first and think, am I like the odd one out in a bad way or a good way? But I was thinking, maybe it's a good thing, I don't know. And obviously it was. So I always think in them situations, I try and find a good in that, do you know what I mean? Rather than seeing it as a negative.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, reframe. We talk a lot about reframing on the podcast, actually. So yeah, I love the way you've been able to do that. So did you get a phone call to say like you've been successful, you're going to be
I can't remember what it was, but I just remember being at work. I think it must have been, maybe it was a phone call. I was at work and I'd nipped out, to answer it. And afterwards I was like, oh my God. And you know, one of the moments where you want to ring everyone, and then every time you ring everyone, no one answers. Like, I rang my mum. I wasn't really supposed to tell anyone, but it ended up being just bizarre. Even to be in this position now, it's still weird. It's real. I find it really strange that it all happened. Like, it's weird.
Surreal. And what we see on TV, oh, sorry, I'm getting a bit of an echo coming my way. When you see that on TV, is that really how it felt like to be on The Apprentice? Because the only experience I ever have of I've been on television twice, and each time it was like it was on a selling houses program.
Right.
It's edited so much that like huge parts of it were cut out and things were kind of, I don't know, like depicted in a certain way because it's TV, obviously. So
yeah, I think going into it, I was kind of aware, or I was thinking, it will probably be like that. But one thing I would say is it was a lot harder than I expected it to be, because you've only watched like 1 hour on a Wednesday night, but as if you've been on shows, they're filmed over a period of time, and like there's a lot that you don't see, as in even like we all live in a house, you know what I mean? So it was a bit like The Apprentice meets Big Brother, and dealing with, I think the hardest part was like being friends with everybody that you was competing against, and then going into task mode and having to be against each other. Like it's really hard. It's a lot harder than when I watch it and I'm like, oh, why did they do that? Or why did they pick that name? I completely get it now. Like I would never judge them for it, because it literally is like, it's really challenging, and not just even mentally, but like physically as well, because you'll get up so early on a morning, you'll have really long days, you come home and it's really hard. Yeah, it was, even thinking back now, it was a difficult, it wasn't just like 1 hour a week, it was like a full-time job almost.
Yeah, wow. I remember listening to you on Khadijah's podcast. I met Khadijah online, actually, via a close friend. And I remember her interviewing yourself, and you were like, this is a bit weird, like,
yeah,
but friends, like.
Yeah, and that was hard, because everybody, to be fair, was nice, and we all actually got on. Everybody had their own little bits of drama with people, but like overall, we as a group, like even now, we still all speak and stuff. So yeah, it was just really weird. You would never in real life have to have a relationship where you get on, but then you rivals like on a task, like as brutal as that is on The Apprentice. So it's strange. It's a strange one to kind of, and I think that's half the battle, is just being able to deal with it. Do you know what I mean? You have to be good on a task, but you have to be able to handle the whole situation after the task and at home and the next morning. Like it's really full on.
Who supported you in that period? Did you have like a mentor or a family member, or who supported
Well,
you?
you got to speak to home the odd time, but not enough to have like someone you wouldn't really talking about anything other than just saying how are you, and they'd say yeah, how are you. But I think in the house, because we all did get along, but I was really good friends with Khadija because she was really like honest and she just said it as it was. And she probably got portrayed like more like angrier than she really was. She was nice.
Yeah.
But she definitely, especially like in the final, because she was on my team and she was like a sister the whole time. Like we had a really good friendship. But then me and Camilla did as well. It was just weird that we ended up being in the final together, because then we became arch enemies when we were probably one of the closest. So
Wow.
yeah, Khadija was great. It's interesting that you mentioned her because she was one of the key ones for me.
Yeah. Oh, amazing. So from that moment then of winning, the partnership with, on The Apprentice and with Lord Sugar, what happened from that point to where you are now? Talk us through that that investment.
God, a lot. So people ask this all the time, like, how does it work? And it works as you expect. You get the investment, you get his help, you have like his board and his team of kind of directors that all are involved as well. And you pretty much just go ahead with the business plan. Obviously things change, and now it's like a different business now, but we kind of start going with a business plan and we say, okay, that's not working, let's try this, and da da da. So we just all systems go, really. And I think because we were still fairly small, pre-investment, it was always going to be a very like gradual build. But now I think, well, definitely now, the last year we've got ourselves in a position where we're ready for that like rapid growth, and we're going to see that rapid growth in the next year. But the initial stage, it was a bit like starting from scratch and building the foundations, so we were ready to grow as quickly as we want to, and as quickly as Lord Sugar wants to, especially.
And was it just you in the business before you got that investment, or did you have
I had like wouldn't even call them staff. I had helpers, and we had like seamstresses, and we had external people that would help do bits and bobs, but majority was me. When I first started the business, every single bit of it was me. And I used to have like, because it was an Instagram page that then had celebrities and people wearing it, so we got loads of followers. And I didn't even have a website back then. So when we kind of we had this one girl who wore a bikini, and it kind of went a bit wild. And we'd made money, but I'd not made enough really to start spending on loads of marketing and things. So I did a course in web building to teach myself how to build the website. And to be honest, even to this day, like, it was one of the best courses I ever did, because having that skill is key. Like, I like to even now know exactly what's going on everywhere. But definitely back then I was doing everything like from myself, and no one had a clue. But obviously it's different now.
I love that. Like, one of my communities just said, love this. Like, it's so true that, in fact, the first program I ever purchased, I can hear myself talking. I don't know what's going on with my speaker today, but I'm going to carry on anyway.
It doesn't sound bad.
Yeah, the first program I bought, funnily enough, was I just started blogging about money, like my story and my relationship with money. And the first course I bought was a WordPress website course, like how to build your own website. And even now, like, I have a lady who does all of my website in the background, but occasionally I'll still go in and tinker and change things and move banners around.
I think sometimes it's just good to have the knowledge. One thing I'm really big on is education and having key skills that you'd need for a business, even if it's in an area you're not used. I had no idea about web building or anything like that, but I kind of thought, let me just teach myself the basics just so I know. And it's so vital now, because I mean, it's a bit different now, but there was definitely a period where I was like, if there are any issues, at least I can just go in and fix it, and I don't need to wait for somebody to do it for me. And I've had that kind of mindset, I guess, with every area. Like, I like to make sure I think, because my background as well, I did fashion design and it had marketing with it, so I tick quite a few boxes and key areas of the business. So yeah, it's not like I'm completely, there's areas that I know nothing about. I pretty much know about most of the different areas, so it's worked well.
So when you reached out to that Instagram influencer to wear your products, like, how did that work? Did you just like, did you message them? Did you write to them?
Yeah.
How did that work?
So back then, Instagram wasn't as big as it is now, and you could kind of just DM people and they'd sometimes reply, not all the time. But I think with her, we messaged her, a stylist messaged us actually. Her stylist came to us and we just had loads of pictures on the Instagram of different bikinis and stuff. And she was like, oh, I've got Kate Wright, who is now Kate Ferdinand. She was like, she's going to Dubai. Can you make them this, 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 and this? So literally that was a case of me. Then I made about 20 bikinis at home on my sewing machine. And then when I sent them all out, I had this feeling where I thought this could have just been anyone. Like they've just got a load of free bikinis for nothing. And I didn't hear anything for a while. And then she wore one I think she was in Dubai, and it was the January. And she tagged the page, and from then on, then we just got stylists. And because Instagram was organic, then everybody saw it, you know. Whereas now, small section of you're following to see your post really, unless you're promoting it. So back then it was great because we managed to kind of use that to build, you know, and to grow and to start from, I guess.
And is that how you've continued to build your audience and sales through your business? Is that Instagram?
It was, yeah, definitely. And it is still a big part, but not that was all we were doing really back then. And it worked great. But there's so many different avenues now in different areas. We do all kinds of different things, but we still have an Instagram page. We still have a presence. We launched a new page for the loungewear purposely, really, because we wanted a new audience for Facebook ads. I don't even want to go into too much detail because it's quite boring, but we wanted to make sure the audience was 100% interested. The problem with The Apprentice was it was amazing. You got so much publicity, but for things like Facebook ads, we had a lot of people follow the business pages and my page, but they were never really intended to shop or to buy products. So you're kind of hitting them with ads that they're not interested in. They just followed us because we were on The Apprentice. So it's been quite nice actually with the loungewear to almost start fresh, and they're like key, you know, that the following we've got on there they're way more valuable in a sense than having absolutely loads and loads of followers. So.
And that's interesting, isn't it? Because when you're building a personal brand as well, and your products are your personal brand, then people, like you say, may follow you because they want to follow you as a person, but they may not necessarily buy your products.
Exactly.
So that can be challenging sometimes when you've got one personal brand and you're selling under your personal brand, but also very advantageous, I guess, from what you described too.
Definitely. I think as well, got back in the Apprentice days and it was just swimwear. You know, it's not like Camilla had her nut milk. So in my opinion, and it wasn't expensive really. So people would have in the final, I remember her saying like, I got absolute loads of orders yesterday and da, da, da. And I was like, that's because those people are supporting you. It's a cheap product. So they're buying it thinking, oh, we'll try it anyway. Whereas with swim, it's a bit different. No one's really going to just buy swim to test it. And you know what I mean? It was very much more a niche product. And that's why as expanding and diversifying a bit has been great, because we're hitting new audiences now that we wouldn't have hit before. And it's not seasonal, so it's a lot easier to sell.
Yeah, I love that. So that's really interesting from a marketing perspective, isn't it? Where you've like niched, super niched, and then you've broadened. And broadened also during a time when people may not be going on holiday as much as they used to be.
Exactly, yeah.
Around at home.
Well, when it hit COVID, I think we just launched a new swim range, and it was just like, oh my gosh, people were sending products back because the holidays had been cancelled. So it was really tough, and it was a bit like, what are we going to do? We'd planned to go into loungewear, just definitely not as quickly as we did. Right. But it has been probably the best thing we've done, even though it was done a lot quicker than planned.
And how was that from a design perspective? Because I know that one of the things that you love to do in your business is to continue with the personal design of your products. How was that for you to go from bikinis and swimwear to loungewear?
At first, it was a bit odd because I was a bit like, I'm so used to even just like I design all the prints and all that kind of thing. But with the loungewear, it was a bit like initially working out where we want to be in the market and what type of brand we want to be and what type of product we want to sell for lounge. And it was a bit more about the fabrics and the fitting than it was about prints and going crazy that side. So I had to kind of rework. But as a designer, I mean, I'm sure if there's other designers listening, like anything designing is like fun. Like when I was younger, I used to do art. I did art at the high school and all sorts. I was just really creative, and I like to sketch and draw. So when it comes to fashion, I'd love to. I can design anything. I'd love to design shoes, but obviously for a long period of time it was just swimwear. So it's been quite nice actually to go into a new area, and yeah, and kind of draw and sketch.
Yeah. Oh, and when you've been through that kind of scale up and you've grown and you're growing your team and you've had that investment in the business. One of the things we talk a lot about, Sian, on the podcast is about how as women, like creating wealth can be like tricky sometimes because, historically, it's always been men that have grown businesses and, had a lot of success or visual success, certainly. But actually, there's a lot of women now that are building their own businesses and becoming very wealthy. So having grown up in Leeds, and I know that your background is, you lived on a council estate as a young child. Like, how did that shift for you in terms of money mindset? Like, did you, when you had this investment, did you think, oh my God, that's so much money? Like, what came up for you there?
It's interesting because my background, my parents, like you said, very humble background, and my parents are very like normal, but they always were very smart with money and with investing money, I guess, my dad especially. So from a young age, they always taught me the importance of money and finances. And I guess for me, I always I'm an only child, and with my mum and dad, because people always say, who's your main inspiration? And it's always my parents, because I've always wanted to make them proud or impress them, or especially being an only child. So it was always about everything I've ever done in life. I've always kind of said, I want to be the best at it, or I want to be better. Even at school, I always got good grades and I wanted better grades. And at uni, I ended up with a first. So then when it came to like working, and kind of, I think work life for me made me kind of think, I don't think I want to do this, because I don't want to be in a 9 to 5. I don't want an ordinary life. And then the business came around, and obviously The Apprentice itself, just to be on that, was like probably the first time I've actually been happy or like proud of myself for something. And then, kind of moving into the business and getting an investment, you are a lot of, for me, I was a bit like, wow, this is a lot of money. Like, this is the most money I've ever like heard of in my life, especially with my background. But it was always about, it's not like, I think sometimes people think it's like cash in your bank, especially with The Apprentice. They just think you're instantly rich, and it's very much not that. It's very much the money's in the business. The business plan needs to be right. You need to spend that money the right way. So it was probably more of a scary time than anything, because it was like, wow, this is a lot of money, and I just need to make sure I get this right. But I'm quite confident, and I've always been confident just as a person, especially in something that I know a lot about. So it was a bit, and then having obviously the backing from Lord Sugar, it's been like, okay, let's go, let's do it. And almost acting like it's not, because it's so funny when you look at some people, it's a lot of money, but then to business owners and to people in the business world, it is, but it's seen differently. So I think kind of become accustomed to, you'll speak to people who've got multi-million pound businesses, or they've had X amount of investment, and it's like, actually, it's different when you go into the business world, I think, or the big business world.
So almost like then what I heard you saying there then is almost like, because you're surrounded by other people in business or multimillionaires, it's almost like it's not a big deal. It's in the business. We've got a plan for it. This is where it's going to be allocated. So almost like it's,
like it's obviously is, as from my background, it's like, this is a big deal, and it is a big deal to like 90% of people. But then you do see like you say, like the percentage of people who I know who have businesses or who've raised funds before, and they've raised millions of pounds for things, or you look at like people I was watching Grand Designs last night, and some guy had raised about 4 million for a house, and you just it's different when you look at it that way. But for me, I always try and keep that humble mindset and think it's still real money. It's a lot of money. Like, don't act like it's just whatever. Like, it's a massive opportunity still. Well, or was, I guess it is now. Yeah.
Do you have like a personal hotline, WhatsApp channel or something with Lord Sugar that you can ask questions?
We do have WhatsApp, but we generally talk over email still. But we do talk a lot. I think people always say, "Oh, how often do you see him?" But we at least speak like once a month. We have kind of catch-up calls where we're on the call and the board and everyone, and we just chat through what's going on. So yeah, I'm meeting him on Thursday, actually. Thursday or Wednesday this week. We've got a big meeting in London, so I'll be seeing him. Not seen him in a while.
Oh, well, tell him we said hi. What would you say has been the biggest lesson you've learned from Lord Sugar in business? If you could pick one, there's probably like hundreds, I'm sure, but if you could pick one of the biggest lessons.
I think there were two lessons, and one's quite specific to mine. Well, I guess it's not really, actually. The first thing that he said when we started to work together was, you need to get your branding, like you need to get the branding right, and you need it to, and it's completely true, because as a fashion brand, the branding and the story of the brand, especially for us as we moved into loungewear, gosh, more than anything, like it needs to be strong, because people, especially now with online, everybody has a platform. There's all kinds of brands on there at all different price ranges. And for us, because we're kind of midway in price wise, we're not expensive, but we're not really cheap. It's making sure that the customer who comes on can read the story, kind of feel connected to the brand and who we are and the products, and because they can't see the product, they're only seeing a picture online. So he was very adamant about making sure that that was key, and that it was easy for people to find or read up on. And then I guess as we got into COVID year, it was more about just being savvy and pulling the brakes with things that would need to, with making sure that your cash flow is where it needs to be. And we had no idea what would happen with COVID. And then the diversifying side, it was massive on that. If the products you've got, if no one needs them, we need to find something else that people need. Everybody needed loungewear. So the loungewear we launched I think it was like last winter, it did so well. And partly because we got it right, the products were right, it was the right time, everybody was at home, the pricing I think was a sweet spot, and it just worked really well. So yeah, he's good. He knows his stuff. God, he's been doing it a long time.
Wow, and such important messages there in business for anyone listening to this. Branding, the importance of personal branding. Yeah. You want people to remember you, and people remember you through stories, through your messaging, how you're communicating, but then also that ability to pivot fast sometimes. I mean, goodness, COVID, I know, has been, and I guess the challenge, we didn't know with COVID how long it was going to last, right? But I love the way you talk there about, well, let's just double down on cash flow, make sure our cash flow is secure, make sure we've got strong financial foundations. We talk a lot about that on the podcast. And then, if there's an opportunity, and this is something we talk about a lot as well, Sian, because a lot of people, particularly around money, they're high planners. So they feel like they have to have everything planned in advance, like what they're doing 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 5 years down the line. But then we just don't know when something like COVID hits. We need to have that ability to be able to pivot and be a little bit maybe more impulsive or spontaneous or creative.
Massively.
And I imagine as a designer, the creativity is not the hard bit for you, because
no,
like
it's the execution. I think sometimes it's like executing the plan as well. With a fashion brand, it was a bit like, I was nervous because I was thinking, we're swimwear, we're going to launch lounge, but if we don't get it right, it could almost ruin what we've created so far. So it was definitely about making sure that was executed right. But yeah, I think it's just about being able to adapt. You can write as many business plans as you want with your 5-year plans in, and this is where we want to be, but guaranteed along that journey, gosh, there'll be so many hurdles and things that will change the plan, whether you want to or not, that you can't always stick to what you originally planned. And that's exactly been my story, really. We had, you have the business plan. I was like, I'm going to do this and this. And then sometimes you try things and you're like, actually, no, that's not right. Let's pull that and let's try something else. But a lot of the time for us, it's just been, we've just had to react with COVID, and we had to very quickly adapt. Otherwise, who knows what would have happened. And like you said, it wasn't just a couple of months. It was, it was 18 months it's been or something now. Like, it's been a long time. And we actually, when we first went in COVID, we we obviously had this new swim stock. It was a bit like, what are we going to do with it? So we started to produce washable, reusable face masks out of our swimwear. They weren't like the, surgical, medical, whatever. They weren't, and we made sure it was clear. But they were reusable, washable. You could put the thingy ones inside, whatever they're called. And for a short period of time, it was like, it's quite nice because it feels like we're actually helping a little bit as well. But that was one of those that was like a really short adaptation that was like, this is not going to be the plan. This could just be a little interim kind of solution. And then in that time, we were then working on the loungewear, bringing out a range, building a range to sell into retail, which we've just launched now. That launched into Dubai and Ireland, a few different places. We managed to sell it in, which was again great. And you know what? We sell in swim to retail, and selling in lounge was so much easier because there's no worry about seasonality, about styling as such, because people will just, especially with COVID, it worked. So yeah, it's been a crazy year, I guess.
And what's next? What's next for the year ahead?
Well, we've got a couple of big opportunities coming up that I should hopefully know about in the next few weeks. So we're just kind of waiting on whether these happen or not. Fingers crossed they will. I mean, we're at the final stages now, but yeah, it's just about growing. People always say, what's your plan? Where do you want to be? And for me, I think given the past and given how things have had to change and adapt with COVID and whatever else, it's more just a plan of continuing to grow and continuing to go in the right direction, and to, I could say all day long, eventually I want to take over the loungewear market. I actually just want the business to be to grow and to continue to prosper. Really, that's the key, and become successful or be more successful. But they're the key things, and build on the retail side. I think we really want to get into a couple more retailers, and then I'll be fully. I don't think you'd ever be fully happy with a business. I don't think it ever fulfilled. That's the other problem I have, is I have these goals and I get to them and I'm like, okay, this is the next goal. And you almost think, oh, one day I need to just say, okay, I'm happy now. This is where I want to be. But I don't think it'll ever happen.
I'm not sure that ever happens as an entrepreneur. I think that's what keeps you building and growing and scaling. Yeah. You're always looking for the next opportunity, the next idea. That's the beauty of being in business, isn't it?
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll go to bed and wake up and think, I'm done now. Like, I'm ready for.
Yeah, I'm going to retire now. 40, I'm retiring. But no, I think sometimes it's nice. It's good. I like to be busy. And if ever I've had time off, which is very, very rare, I've been ill, I struggle more with not doing anything. Yeah. But it is kind of hard when your all systems go all the time, because sometimes you just need to switch off and watch a bit of TV or watch a film or something,
So just to finish on that then, Sian, how do you stay grounded when you run a successful, high profile business? How do you stay grounded?
I think because of how I am and where I am, I think being in Leeds is a big help, because I'm very close to my parents and my family and my, my boyfriend and whatever else. And we're all just very kind of normal. And it's weird, COVID, I've not really been anywhere, but more recently I've been out and about, and I was in Boots the other day and a girl was like, oh, can I get a picture? And it's just, even that, I find it weird when people want pictures. But I live a very kind of normal life, I guess. It's nothing too extravagant, because I'm just building this business, really. So, yeah. And, I like to do my normal things. I like to go to the gym. Or I'm trying to get back into the gym because I've had nearly a bloody year off. But, yeah, just doing normal things and being around friends and family. That's the main thing, I think, for me.
Yeah, amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Sian. And if anybody wants to check out your bikini range or your loungewear range, where would be the best place for them to come and find you?
So you can find both collections on sianmarie.com, or you can follow us on Instagram, which is at Sian Marie, or my Instagram at Sian Gabadon. But the main area is the website, I guess.
Amazing. And we'll pop all those links in the show notes for the listeners today as well. And I'll do a little screenshot. I can hear myself again. I'll do a little screenshot of us on Instagram, on my Instagram account as well. So cool. You can find it over there. But this will be going out live on the podcast next week, so you guys can catch up and grab those links. But thank you so much, Sian. It's been so lovely to chat with you about your journey through The Apprentice. I'm really looking forward to when The Apprentice returns next year. We were just chatting about that, weren't we, online? It's not coming out till next year. But it's been a real pleasure. Just so lovely to hear your journey and your experiences and how you pivoted and what, some of the lessons that you've learned really through Lord Sugar and building a successful business. So can't wait to carry on following you. And who knows, we're actually moving to Jersey in a few weeks and I'm going to need some new swimwear. So maybe
I'll sort you out.
Something to suit my shape.
We can sort you out, don't worry. We'll sort something.
Well, thanks so much, Sian. Great to speak with you. And thanks for listening, guys.